Misha here, and well, I ran across something that I was really interested in, but more importantly, Peanut has joined us. Hello, Peanut. Are we good? Okay. Last year I looked at some 1/18 scale figures from Joy Toy. They had the American Army, they had American paratroopers, they had several different German Army figures, and they had Soviets, which is kind of surprising. I said back then, I would really like to see Japanese, maybe British, maybe some US Marines. And, well, I knew about them, but for whatever reason, I just didn't look into them before 1/18 scale from Marauders. So I picked up the Japanese. Actually, they only have 3 on their website, but I put together a 4th. Because these are very modular, which is kind of a mixed blessing. Anyway, on the far left, we have Japanese Rifleman. Then we have Japanese Light Machine Gunner. Then we have the one that I actually put together in the middle right, the Grenadier or Mortar Man. And then finally we have what they consider an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, could be, or it could be a lower ranker like, say, lieutenant or captain. But it is nice to have an officer in the series because a lot of times officers are skipped for some reason in the American lines, both Joy Toy and, as it turns out, Marauders. The officer, well, there isn't one, at least not dedicated. So I want to go over these a little bit and kind of talk about their weapons and gear from a historical point of view, because there are some things they got surprisingly right and some things they got oddly wrong. Nevertheless, they're pretty cool figures, I'm not gonna lie, and I already ordered some more because they also have US Marines, but they're not in yet. The Japanese are, though, and before we give them someone to fight against on a hellhole in the middle of the Pacific, we'll look at our guys. By the way, these guys do have names, and yes, one of them is Ryu. They come with a good amount of gear. In fact, most come with 2 different helmets, headdress. One even has 3. They come with the Type 30 bayonet. I think all of them do. And then they come with a few different pouches, different sizes. They all come with a haversack or backpack. And it's really neat, they come with a mess kit, which, yes, it does mount to the haversack, the backpack in real life. An entrancing tool, which is removable. And then I put this guy's canteen on his sack. They did carry them there, although a lot of times they would carry them on their belt in the war, but they did hook stuff to their haversack quite a bit. And he has the regular kind of steel pot helmet, the Type 90, I believe. And they did a really good job. The chin strap and everything, it goes on really well. These guys are pretty well articulated, but that does get me to one of the things. The gear is held in with pegs, which is good. It's modular. But if you move him a lot, it can fall off. The good news is you can just put a dab of glue or something and it stays on pretty good. It's not horrible, but what I've been doing is kind of test fitting and seeing where I want stuff and then putting just a little dot of glue. Usually I take the nub and put the glue tip on it and then stick it in, because he does this harness strap belt gear is removable too. They actually come totally disassembled. They don't even have heads. And they warn you to heat them up when you get them. Well, I don't have a hairdryer here, But what I do have is Arkansas sun. So I just laid them outside on the porch on the rail in the heat for a minute. And trust me, they were plenty flexible. Anywho, his rifle, his so-called Type 99 Arisaka. And it does come with a Type 30 bayonet affixed. I don't know if you can see, but the thing on his belt is just the empty scabbard. Well, I'm glad we have an Arisaka in this scale. I'm just glad to have Japanese troops in the scale at all. Because so much of this stuff's made in China, they're not a fan of Japanese. At least some of them. And so it's hard to get the stuff. But I have issues with this mold of a Type 99, quote unquote. And to illustrate, let's look at a real world example. Let's start with the Arisaka here. And since the bayonet is attached, we'll do this for this one. This just happens to be the only one out of the cabin with me. This is a Toyo Kogyo. Pretty early. Nice example though. And if you're noticing something, you're not wrong. Scale-wise, this seems like it would be a little long. This is a short rifle, 25-inch give or take barrel. Even though Marauder says this is a Type 99, it sure looks like a Type 38 long rifle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Type 38s served in World War II, absolutely. But it's not a 99. Another way you can tell, even in this small scale, the front sling swivel is on the bottom. And with all your 99 short rifles, it's on the side. Now, yes, there was the 99 long rifle, but this doesn't have a monopod either, so I don't think so. I'm also still curious where the bolt handle went. Flipping over, here it is. They did a good job with the back of the receiver, how it's rounded. They even had the takedown there. It's just kind of unusual to me. Not the worst in the world. But one final complaint. I think it's neat that it has the bayonet attached because it's Japan. But I do wish they had either given a second mold with it off or made it removable. Because they also do supply you with the Type 30 bayonet itself. Maybe I'm being overly picky, but you can judge for yourself. It's not so bad. The lack of a charging handle is kind of odd, cocking handle. It's even more unusual because they do make a Mosin Nagant that has one. I'm not sure. In it being a Type 38, that's absolutely fine. It's just odd they call it a Type 99. Oh well. But yeah, your basic infantrymen here. And these all do come with stands. You can get them in different textures, different colors. And they do sit on them quite well with both feet. The feet do have up and down pivot, which is a little more than like the dime store. They're reasonably flexible. They do have a different head you can get. Whatnot. Here it is. This one does have the hooked quillion. And they actually did a really good job on the scabbard. This particular one has the letter style rounded end. Your earlier ones had the ball end. They give you the bayonet, but is your guy supposed to have two? One on his rifle, one on his belt? Luckily, you can do this. It comes out of the scabbard, so that's why I just have the empty scabbard hanging on his belt. And just kind of throw the bayonet in the parts pile. Yeah, I don't know what else to really do with it the way they've done it. It is also a fullered blade. Again, earlier feature, but a lot of them had that. This is a later style unfolded. So they did a good job with the bayonet, honestly. Quite nice. The way they did the rifle. If there was a way to trim this off and not goober up the barrel, I might think about it, but I don't think there really is. What do you think, though? Now let's look at the light machine gunner, said to have the Type 99 light machine gun, which is a close relative of the Brin, with the top-mounted magazine. It's about a 10.5-pound gun. It does have a fold-down bipod, so it is articulated. It actually comes disassembled, and so you have to put the bipod on, and it's a tight fit. I ended up heating up the arms of the bipod to kind of snap in there, but once it's in, at least it's tight. He too has a Type 30 bayonet. Put it on his back there. And that would actually fit the machine gun in reality. He has the two large pouches in front. And then he has a shoulder bag, because they typically carried about 6 mags, if they had space and weight, for their machine gun. So I would say that he's got his spare mags in the shoulder pouch, and then extra ammo in these. And they did carry a third large pouch sometimes on the belt, but I stuck his on the side of the sack just to short there, because he didn't quite want to fit down here properly. There's not enough clearance room, so on the side it is. He's got his mess kit and canteen. A lot of times they would also have their shovel, but at the same time too, a lot of light machine gunners would kind of offload gear they didn't need at the time. In fact, a lot of them would strip off their backpack if they were going into combat, and and had time to do it, just to free themselves up, because they are carrying a lot more weight. He holds it quite well. I don't believe the mag's removable. No, I say that because they have some guns with removable magazines. The Russian Papa Shah that Marauders does comes to mind. And he should have a different face to the infantryman. You guys can tell me. Still wearing the same steel helmet, although he does come with the alternative helmet, and this guy's wearing it. My Grenadier or Mortar man, for some reason they don't sell a figure that just comes with it directly, so you have to kind of buy it yourself. He's got the Type 89 mortar launcher, weighed about 5-6 pounds, but it's basically a tube. This is what was kind of known as the knee mortar, but you didn't want to put it against your knee. But this plate down here kind of give that impression. They also had some Japanese grenades, so I picked up a couple. Stuffed one in his belt there, put one in his hands. He's my Grenadier, like I said. Gave him a pouch in the front, because they did carry extra gear for the grenades. And then gave him 2 satchels, because they did have padded satchels to carry mortars, grenades in. I can't remember how many was in each one, but a few. That way they wouldn't clang together. So we can say that he had fuses and stuff in the pouch, and then there. And he is still issued with a Type 30 bayonet, even if he doesn't have anything to stick it on. It was just kind of used as a general knife. And they would sometimes hook them to the side of their pack. Mess kit and shovel there. And he is holding his canteen on his belt, more or less where it normally would be. And you notice he's wearing the cap with the kind of neck protection. All of them come with that, and that was a very common piece of gear. In fact, in theory, all soldiers had it. At first, it was kind of meant to be worn around base, not in direct combat, but in tropical environments, it became more and more popular, lighter weight, cooler, and I thought a guy running around shooting mortars and whatnot probably would appreciate that. Of course, it didn't give near the level of protection that a steel helmet would, but then again, the Type 90 wasn't the best helmet, anywho. But like I said, I set him up, so I, had to get a knee mortar. Such a iconic or infamous part of World War II. Boom. So he's kind of my own creation here. What do you think? And they didn't have a submachine gunner. The Japanese did have some submachine guns, but not very many. They only made 20, 30,000 Type 100s. They had some foreign ones. But really, yeah, you had your light gunner, you had your mortarman, you had your rifleman, and then, of course, you needed an officer on top of it all. And here he is. Bit of a different one. He does come with the standard harness too, but this is more the officer's belt and strap style. He does have a unique cap just to him, although he actually comes with the steel helmet, which officers would wear in combat, especially early war. And he has the version of the cap with the neck flap and this, so pretty cool. He does come with a standard backpack, but the reality is typically officers would carry a smaller pack, like this satchel he's got here. And he does have a holster for his Type 14 Nambu. And like we did with the Arisaka rifle, let's compare. And here is a Type 14 Nambu. First off, I think they did an excellent job with the holster. They even have this small flap down here and this kind of hard shell top. And inside, you can even see the pocket. And the pistol fits as it should for the Marauder Japanese officer. Let's see if I can get this out one-handed. There we go. This is a later production one, 1944, but goes to show you. Got the enlarged trigger guard, grips. It seems to me a very nicely done pistol. Of course, just very tiny because we're 1/18 scale. So I will forgive them for not having all the details. But the barrel seems appropriately thin, and I am impressed with how they did the trigger guard, but I'm actually very impressed with the holster. Of course, the back is not the same. But, yeah. What do you think? If I'm a little disappointed in the Arisaka, I'm actually quite impressed with how they did the Nambu. Actually, even more impressed with the holster. They got it right. And the kind of NCO style scabbard katana, they did a really good job with it too. It's pretty easy to pull out. He comes with a small pouch, kind of just gear. In theory, it could be for ammo, but that was my grenade. The other guy. But just a pouch. Could have a compass, maps in there, whatever else. There's his canteen. It was typically carried on the left if they had space, although they could move it around. And then his satchel, and then his Nambu. kind of move these around to where they worked best. I had to move the katana a little further forward because it does stick up a bit. Typically, both the pistol and sword would be worn kind of side towards the front anyway, so it works. I think he actually might be my favorite. Here's that grenade that popped out of the Grenadier's hand. You can see it there, kind of the old knocker type. It's really cool that they do these, though. Believe it or not, that's the first time the grenade's fallen out of his hand. That was me knocking it. I should also mention the hand swivel, and they actually pivot, too. Better articulation than I really expected out of the hands and feet. The waist has some rotation and all that. I would still say that the Joy Toy figures have more articulation, but the hands seem to be a little better graspy, grippy on the Marauder here. You guys can tell me what you think of the paint. Not really something I can judge for either one. Of course, your Joy Toy figures are a little cheaper, and they come in more or less pre-assembled, so that's kind of nice. Yeah, I think the officers probably they're neat. The officer's my favorite. The machine gunner's pretty cool. I am looking forward to the Marines. They do several different ones. You'll have to know what you think about these. Let me know. And sorry, no, I don't have a Type 89 knee mortar, quote unquote, or a Type 99 light machine gun to compare. I have handled a Type 99 once, years ago. Never have handled a knee mortar. Me personally, I'm just happy to have different ones. They do some Russian ones too. Measuring these, they're very close to Joy Toy, but I think they might be slightly taller, just a hair. It's hard to say, you know, caps and stuff. They definitely are made out of a harder plastic, whereas the Joy Toy is more of kind of like a Black Series plastic, a little bit more flexible. These feel kind of like old school G.I. Joes in that hard plastic sense. But at least they're not O-ring figures that'll break on you. And you don't have to buy them geared up. You can just buy individual parts, kind of like I did for the Mortar Man. And just take what you need. It's probably a little cheaper to buy them as a complete setup figure if you need everything, but if you don't, the base body's like $10-11, so that's not too shabby. Well, they're really kind of cool, and I actually bought some extra rifles for my Joy Toy figures. Most guns are between 50 cents and $2.50, with a lot of your general rifles $1.50 to $2, and that's painted and everything. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I just wanted to show these with you and get what you thought. And Peanut's been here the whole while. I think you're telling me you want to go to bed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope everyone's having a good start to their week. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.